Hello. I wanted to make a video that shows what a 3D lookup table or 3D LUT looks like, what it does, how it works, and I wanted to show how to incorporate that into your workflow in Photoshop and Lightroom when you're doing photography. So let's dive in. To show what a lookup table looks like, here I've plotted a LUT of size 8, which does nothing. It just maps the input to the output without any modifications. A lookup table is a sampled representation of some mathematical function, and it stores the mapping of the input to the output, basically in a table. Essentially, you're telling the computer, hey, take this value in the RGB color space and map it to this other color. You see it has 3 axes, red, green, and blue, and all of the input values are mapped one-to-one to the same output values. So it does nothing to the colors. And let's also look at a LUT that does something quite dramatic. Here I've plotted a LUT that posterizes the image with 2 levels. And as you see, all the previous dots have collapsed into 8 dots. So any value that's below 0.5 has gone to 0 and above has been rounded up to 1. LUTs provide a universal way to express complex color operations, since any arbitrary input to output mapping is allowed. Anytime you'd like the RGB channels to, so to speak to each other, you should think of using a LUT. As you see, LUTs are fairly generic creatures that are actually a great fun to use in photography for creative purposes. And next we'll look at how to incorporate them into our workflow. So first I'd like to show how to export a 3D LUT from Photoshop. Here I have loaded a image with 2 gradients going through all the hues, and the left one shows lightness and the right one shows saturation. I'd like to use this image because it shows me what's going on with all the colors at all saturations and lightness levels when working with LUTs, and it helps you identify problems, artifacts, posterization, etc. So the first thing you should do, and this is important, is that you need to have a background layer. Otherwise nothing will work and you'll be scratching your head. So if this is not a background layer, then make sure you select it and go to Layer, New, Background from Layer. And next you can add any adjustment layers. You can go crazy. As long as you don't have any masks in them, they can be compiled and exported as a LUT. So let's do a, I don't know, color balance. Let's mess with the colors. That looks nice. It's kind of a reddish effect, a reddening of the midtones. I don't know. Doesn't matter, up to you. And let's add something else. Let's add a vibrance, and then we decrease it, increase saturation. Who knows? Yeah, we're going crazy. And now we're happy with what it looks like. We go to File, Export, and then we choose Color Lookup Tables. Here we can name it Wild and Crazy. And then here we choose the size of it. I would not go beyond medium. The file size will increase as the cube, I guess, of the grid point, so medium should be enough. Otherwise you might get very big files. As long as your edits, complex edits, don't fall between the samples, you should be fine. You shouldn't go too low. And then we call it Wild and Crazy. Save it. Now what I've done here is that I've opened a raw file, and we want to import this cube file that we just exported into our Photoshop as a profile. So we can apply it to any raw file that we're processing. And as a result of importing it into Photoshop, we will also import it into Lightroom at the same time. So we go to filter and we open our camera raw filter. It's the same thing that opens when you just open a raw file. And here we go to this ... and here you have create preset. That's not what we want. We want to create a profile. So we do Option or Alt and we click it. And then it turns to create profile. And here we will find all the way down here color lookup table. Click on it. And we load our wildandcrazy.cube file. And these, you don't have to touch anything. Adobe takes care of it. And we say OK. Now if you browse under user profiles, we will have wild and crazy. And we can apply it at any amount we wish. That's it. The other way to apply this LUT would be, we undo, would be to add an adjustment layer that is a color lookup adjustment layer. And here we can load the actual LUT itself that we just exported. So, and we have the same effect. Next we will open Lightroom and see that our LUT has also appeared there. Here I've opened the same picture in Lightroom. And if we go to the profile section here in the develop menu, then we can go to browse and we find under our user profiles wild and crazy. So it's appeared here as well. And we can adjust the amount as we could in Photoshop. I really like to use this as a alternative to the sliders here, which I use more for technical edits. And then you can separate these two, your technical edits from your creative edits. So if we did our technical edits, fixed exposure and all these things, then we can go to our profile browser and choose any sort of look that we want. And Lightroom comes with a bunch of nice built-in profiles. I really like Vintage 4 and Vintage 8. The difference between presets here is that when you apply these, it does not affect your slider values. So if we were to reset this to its original state, then we can apply a preset, which mostly does not affect the profile. Some presets do have a baked-in profile as well, but then we can go into the profile and still fine-tune it to achieve some sort of coherent look on our Instagram feed. The reason that I like LUTs is because it feels kind of like choosing a film to put in your camera to give you a certain look. Another analogy that I like is that of painting. Before you start painting, you choose a palette of colors that work well together, and then you paint using mixtures of those. With LUTs, we can sort of tweak and squeeze and push our colors into colors that are perceptually coherent and look visually appealing to us. Great, now we've looked at Photoshop and Lightroom and said some poetic words. One last thing I want to mention is before you set up your web shop and start selling LUTs that you've made in Photoshop, you should probably check out what the filmmakers have been doing for a while, and also 3D LUT Creator, which is a much more sophisticated tool to work with HSL, even though Photoshop and Lightroom do have hue saturation lightness controls. They're not really natively supporting that mode of working. So thank you for watching, and hope you find a good use for LUTs in your workflow.